Hi everyone and welcome back. In today's video we will continue working on the CPU cooler we started in the last lesson. This time we will be focusing on texturing it so we can later use it in our product animation lesson. If you don't have the model yet, you can either follow along with the previous video to create it yourself, or you can download the model for free from my PayHip website. The links are in the description. Now let's get started. Okay, so right now we have our cooler here and I will add an environmental texture. So go into the world settings and here you can see the yellow icon. You need to click and choose environmental texture and add any HDRI texture from your desktop. Okay, so that looks good so far. And you can see we have a realistic light here, good shadows, so we will work with that. Right now let's open a new window. And after that select the shader editor in this menu. Click New, and we're going to make a new material for our blades. And let's name it Blades here. After that, Shift A, search for Noise Texture. And then just Shift A one more time and search for the bump node. Then with Noise Texture selected, press Ctrl T to add additional nodes. And in texture coordinate node, select object and plug it into the vector. And let's plug vector into the height and normal into the normal. Set noise texture scale to something like 600, so it would look like this. Set detail to 15 and roughness to 0.8. Okay, and now I want to decrease bump strength to something like 0.2. Should work. And now let's change the blade's color to something dark, and I will actually paste a value here. So in hex value you can see it says 1B, 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 so you can just type in that value. And I can see one additional blade here, so I will delete it. Now let's set roughness to something like 0.64. Now let's select this base part, add a new material, call it main one, and after that we're going to add a noise texture here. And let's add a bump node as well. Connect the vector to the height and normal into the normal. And I will now show you our reference images, and you can see the base and corners, they have different colors here. So the base is kind of gray and the corners are black, so we're going to work on that right now. Select our noise texture, Ctrl T, and again let's plug object to the vector of the mapping node. The noise texture scale should be something like 500, and I think it looks nice like that. The detail should be maxed out, 15, and roughness, let's set it to something like 0.95. After that let's set the bump node strength to something like 0.25. Okay, so with left click, let's just select everything and G to move it down, just like that. And we're going to add a gradient texture right now. And add a color ramp, so let's search for it. And let's plug the color of the texture to the color ramp. And we can Ctrl Shift click to see how the texture works. And first of all, let's swap the sliders. So black should be on the right and white on the left. Make the white color darker and the black color a bit more lighter. And right now let's change the gradient type from linear to radial. And right now you can see if I move the sliders to the left or to the right, the color itself remains the same, but we have some variations of it. And I want to do this to diversify the looks of our CPU cooler base. You can put the slider however you want. And I'll put mine somewhere here. I think it looks pretty good. And let's plug color to the base color and then Ctrl Shift click on our principal BSDF. That's the result we have right now. And as for the dark color, I will make it even darker. So you can see I have 5 streaks here. So you can type this hex value to your texture. And let's just change roughness slightly, so 0.45 should work. And I think it looks really nice. And right now we can press Shift A and then search for Mix Shader. And then Shift A one more time, let's add a color ramp here, and then Shift A one more time and let's search for the ambient occlusion. Plug AO to the vector and color to the vector of the mix shader. And right now we need to swap black color with a white one, so let's do that. Black should be on the right and white should be on the left. And right now you can see if I move this slider we have different ambient occlusion results. And let me show you that more precise, so take a look at this part here. When I move the slider, you can see it becomes less dark, so I want to move it to somewhere right here, and we will have a slight tint that will look good. And now let's select our cylinder in the middle of our CPU cooler, and we are going to work on this part right now. So let's select the main one material and then tap into edit mode and select the middle face. Hold Ctrl, press numpad plus, and we will select additional mesh. Then open slot 1, press plus and create new material and call it main 2. And we will need to assign our selection to this main 2 material. So right now let's add a noise texture, Shift A, search for the noise texture and then search for the bump texture. Black factor into the height and normal into the normal. And we have something that looks like this right now, and I want to set bump strength to something like 0.18. In the noise texture, let's change the scale to 250, set detail to 15 and roughness to 0.95. Ctrl T, plug object into the vector of the mapping node. And right now I will paste a color that I want to see here, and you can see the hex value is 1B, 1B, 1B. You can type that in your texture. And right now set roughness to something like 0.57. I think it looks really good. And let's search for the mix shader. Then add color ramp and ambient occlusion. Connect AO to the vector and color into the vector of the mix shader. Again, you can see that we need to swap our sliders, so black to the right, white to the left. And let's see how ambient occlusion affects our object. I want to move black slider to somewhere right here, and I think it looks okay. We can open the specular tab and set our specular to 0.3. Select our corners here and let's assign a main 2 material to them. And we have applied our material here, but now we're going to select this inset mesh here and we're going to apply the main 1 material to it. So it would look like our corners overlap the mesh underneath them. And for that, go into the modifiers tab, take bevel modifier up, Ctrl A to apply it, and now we can work with this mesh. So let's tab into edit mode right now, and I want to select these inner faces. Before that, press / on your keyboard to go into the local view, and let's disable the subdivision surface modifier. Now select these edges with Alt right click, hold Shift and select these faces here as well. After that, hold Ctrl and press plus on your numpad. And we can manually select additional edges by holding Shift, Alt right click here. And let's select the same edges from the other side. Now go to the slot 1, press plus, search for the main 1 material and assign it to our selection. I'll go to the render view and now you can see how it looks. And we can enable the subdivision surface modifier back. Okay, so right now let's press / to exit local view. I'm going to apply the same gray material to our objects you can see here on the reference images. So while holding Shift, let's select all of these objects here, and the last selection should be the objects with the materials applied to it. And after that, hold Ctrl, press L on your keyboard and choose Link Materials. And now you can see we have transferred the material to our other objects. Now let's work on the corners here. So I will select them and press / key to enter local view. And just like we did the previous time, I will apply the bevel modifier and then apply materials to these corners. Tab into edit mode and disable the subdivision surface modifier. Select the faces that I select, then hold Ctrl and press plus on your numpad to expand the selection. And after that, choose slot 1, click the plus icon, search for the main 1 material and apply it. Right now press / to exit local view and let's enable our subdivision surface modifier back. Okay, so I really like how everything looks so far, and now we are going to work on our clips. So I'm going to select the first clip, add a new material, and I will call it Metal 1. After that, let's search for the noise texture and bump node. Ctrl T on the noise texture, object to vector, factor to height, and normal to normal. Set the scale to 250, detail to 15, roughness to 0.95, and let's decrease the bump node strength to something like 0.1. Okay, so I will zoom in and let me set metallic to 1 and roughness to something like 0.19. And the hex color I will paste here is 767676. You can type in the same value. Okay, looks nice, and we can tweak specular a bit. So open the specular tab and type in something like 0.3 will work, I think. And let me look around, and I think everything looks nice. Now we're going to work on these radiator plates, and you can see bad shading here, so we're going to fix it right now. Let's disable the array modifier and let's go into the local view right now. Go into wireframe mode, select these vertices, then X, F and delete the faces. And let's select these middle vertices here and then do the same X, F to delete the faces. Now if I go into the rendered view, you can see everything looks nice and we have nice shading, and we can now enable the array modifier. Now let's create new material and call it metal plates or metal radiator, whatever you want. And the hex value I'm going to paste is 5E, 5E, 5E. You can type the same number into your hex value. After that I will set the roughness to 0.4 and set metallic to 1. And I think it looks nice, so we can just switch to another object and create material for the top of the radiator. So I select the object and then I create new material and I will call it metal top. Let's set metallic to 1 and then Shift A, search for the noise texture. Ctrl T and also search for the bump node. Vector into the height, normal into the normal. And let's plug object into the vector and you can see everything looks fine now. I'll set the scale to 150, detail to 15, and let's set roughness to 0.8. Set the bump strength to 0.2 and roughness to 0.35. Okay, so now I will search for the color ramp and connect the vector of the noise texture to the vector of the color ramp. We can Ctrl-Shift-click on the color ramp and see how the texture looks. So I will move the black slider to the middle and insert the hex color, which is 626262. And I will make the white color slightly darker, just like this. And let's connect the color of the color ramp to the base color of our principal BSDF. And now let's move our view so we could see the reflections on our surface. I will set the bump strength to 0.2. And then the color node of the color ramp I will plug into the height of our bump node. And we can now see some surface imperfections, so if we move our slider you can choose how much of those imperfections you want to see on your surface. So I'm going to tweak our color ramp a bit and I'm going to play with the slider and I will choose how many surface imperfections I want to see here. I think it looks good, and now we can select our cylinders on the top and I will apply Metal 1 material to them and it looks really nice, I like it. And right now we can duplicate our textured part of the CPU cooler and then simply rotate it around the 3D cursor. So press numpad 7, go into the top view and then switch to the wireframe mode. I'm going to select this part of our CPU cooler and then deselect the bottom part. Make sure you have selected everything, then X and delete everything. Now I'll go to the side view, select the textured part of our CPU cooler, deselect the empty, press Shift D to duplicate it. Then you can see I have a 3D cursor in the middle and we can just rotate around the 3D cursor, so R, Z, 180. And right now we have duplicated everything perfectly. You can go to the rendered view and see how it looks. And we're going to work on the bottom part of our CPU cooler right now. So let's start with the heat pipes. Let's create new material and call it heat pipe. After that, Shift A, search for the noise texture and search for the bump node as well. Ctrl T on the noise texture, plug object into the vector, set the scale to 600, detail to 15 and roughness to 1. I want to set roughness to 1 because you can see on the reference image the heat pipes material looks really smooth there. And I will set the bump node strength to 0.1. Now we need to tweak roughness, so I will set it to 0.35. And the specular I will set to 0.3 as well. And the hex color I paste here is 2B, 2B, 2B. Looking good so far, and now let's select this big heat pipe here. And we're going to select the heat pipes that have materials applied to them, Ctrl L, and then choose link material. So I'm going to work on this bottom part here, and we can actually just apply main 2 material to it, and I think it will look really nice. And let's select the springs here, and then we should select the heat pipes, Ctrl L, link materials, and if we go into the rendered view, you can see that they look the same as our heat pipes, and that's what we want. Now let's select this plate in the middle, and I will apply metal 1 material to it. And after that, let's select the bolt and screws, and we will apply the same metal 1 material to them. So we can just shift select our plate, Ctrl L and link material. Let's go to the rendered view right now, and you can see that we have our CPU cooler textured right now. It looks really nice, so we will create a studio lighting. And right now you can go to the world tab and delete the environmental texture as well as the background node. And in the next video we're going to animate our CPU cooler, so stay tuned. Thanks for watching and I see you next time.